What's up, Raptor Nation and RaptorScope watchers? We're back again to talk about the Toronto Raptors versus the Houston Rockets game. It was at home. Unfortunately, we lost. The score was 139 to 121. It was judging by the score, you can tell there was not a lot of defense played, but it was an interesting game. There were some interesting matchups. No one had any standout game or anything like that. So neither team played defense in the first half, so it was one of those who can score more type affairs at the beginning. Pretty much all the way to the end, except both teams try to step up their defense. Obviously, Houston was a bit more successful, but unfortunately, for the Raptors, they were missing a lot of size due to not having Jakob Poeltl, their starting center. He was injured the game prior, playing against Victor Wembanyama. Colin Murray-Boyles did stand in as the starter this game, and Mamu backed him up. So they both played fairly well. We're putting Colin Murray-Boyles up against Sengun tonight. It's not a very fair matchup, I'll say, but it's definitely interesting in terms of the stats. It's definitely interesting when you look at potential compared to Sengun. So that's why we put that matchup together. It was a loss anyway, and I'm not going to say we expected to win the game without our starting center. And that'd be especially because the Rockets are quite a big team. They start basically without a starting point guard. A familiar name, Fred VanVleet, he's out for the season due to, I think it was a torn meniscus right near the beginning of the season, right just before the season started, unfortunately. So Amen Thompson is their point forward, shooting guard type. He's a defensive menace. He's known as a defensive menace. He rebounds. He's basically a small forward who could play the point, guard shooting guards, guard your power forward. So he's very versatile, and we put him against our most versatile player, Scottie Barnes, as the matchup. And lastly, the matchup that was built up long before Ingram was on the Raptors, long before he was traded to the Pelicans for Anthony Davis. He was always compared to Kevin Durant. In a lot of Lakers circles, apparently he was supposed to be the next Kevin Durant until Anthony Davis was too important to be traded for, and then everybody just forgot about that. So we should always keep in mind when we talk about Brandon Ingram, the reason that we brought him here, the reason that we wanted him here was because he was supposed to be the next Kevin Durant, and he is supposed to be a bona fide bucket. So we're going to see how this matchup shapes up this game. We did lose, but it is a long season. So let's get into the numbers and see how they matched up. Our first matchup is Amen Thompson versus Scottie Barnes, and we'll start with Scottie Barnes. He shot an amazing 61%, 11 of 18 shooting, 4 of 7 of three-pointers. He's continuing his run of strong three-point shooting, which are we going to complain about it? I don't think so. As long as he keeps hitting at this rate, what's to complain about? We have 2 scorers on the team, and people don't necessarily let him in the key that easily. Scottie Barnes I'm talking about, but if he's a third threat, he's already a threat, but Barrett, Ingram, Barnes being a big threat is going to be a big problem for other teams because they do have to guard Brandon Ingram now. But to continue with the numbers, he hit those 4 of 7 three-pointers for 31 points, 11 of 18 shooting, 57% three-point shooting. We don't cover three-point percentages, but he's already shooting over 50% for the year, and that just added to it. That said, he had 5 rebounds, he had 3 stocks, 2 steals, 1 block, and his plus-minus somehow, it was negative 12. It was a good game played by Scottie, but the Rockets were too powerful when it came to, because you have Kevin Durant, you have the strength of Steven Adams as a big inside when we don't have all of our bigs. His assist to turnover ratio, infinity. He had no turnovers. This is one of those games where Scottie put on the Infinity Gauntlet and he had all the rings. He had all the rings for the Infinity Gauntlet. And I will tell you, when you're playing like this, Scottie Barnes, I don't think it's very easy to be stopped. That being said, I did say earlier that not a lot of defense was played in this game. He did have 2 steals and 1 block, but we needed to play more defense on the Rockets than they needed to play on us. They have the Slim Reaper. They have the easy money sniper. They have other players on the team who can score as well. When it comes to being a scorer in the NBA, there's not much better than Kevin Durant. I think a bit of lackadaisical stuff on the defensive end, especially late in the game. Honestly, it's hard to stop Kevin Durant. It's hard to rebound over Steven Adams. So what are you going to do? On to Amen Thompson. Amen Thompson had 18 points on 7 of 13 shooting for a shooting percentage of 53.8. He didn't hit any three-pointers yet. He had 9 rebounds, 2 stocks, which were 2 steals, His assist to turnover ratio was under 2, which, it's not that great. Not much is going to be better than Scotty Barnes in this matchup because he obviously didn't have any turnovers, but he did have 2 assists. So I'm going to say Amen Thompson held his own. The problem with that is that Scotty Barnes did play extremely well. Unfortunately, there were other matchups that did lopside the game, and our starting center wasn't there. So I will give this matchup to Scotty Barnes. He did win this matchup, but it didn't make the game fall in our favor. So we'll move on to the next matchup, which is Colin Murray-Boyles versus Alfred Sengun. So as I mentioned earlier, this matchup is lopsided. It's going to be lopsided. We're talking about a rookie versus not quite a rookie, a pretty seasoned, I'm not going to call him a veteran. He's a veteran. He's only been in the league for 3 or 4 years, but doesn't matter. He's great. Sengun is great. They're talking about him as the next Jokic, however you pronounce it. He played a game today. Unfortunately, it was against us. Let's get to the numbers. Let's start with Colin Murray-Boyles, though. He played 25 minutes, so he was splitting minutes with Mamu, who played 10 at the center position. I believe Scotty Barnes played a bit of that too. So, again, this game was kind of messed up for us because we were out of position a lot of the time. And, that's a lot of the times that Scotty Barnes has downfalls, but not this game. Going back to this matchup, though. 13 points for Colin Murray-Boyles on 5 of 8 shooting. That's 62.5%. He hit 3 3-pointers, though. In 25 minutes, 3 3-pointers. That's, I believe, 2 games in a row that he's done that. So we got to keep in mind that he can hit that shot and make sure we utilize that as an advantage. He also had 1 rebound. Unfortunately, no stocks. His assist to turnover ratio was 2 to infinity, as usual. That's really good when you don't have any turnovers. Unfortunately, his plus minus was negative 14. That would probably be due to his matchup opponent, who had a plus minus of 24. Grown person again. These grown people plus minuses on the opposite team gotta stop. Only teenagers. I only accept teenagers in plus minus. My goodness, 24. Anyway, Sengun shot a devastating 75%, 18 points on 6 of 8 shooting. That's 75% of his shots went in. He hit 1 3-pointer of 2. That's 50% 3-point shooting. And again, his plus minus was 24. Clearly, nobody was in his way. I don't know. He didn't shoot a lot of 3-pointers like he had in previous games, but he can shoot the 3 if he wants, but he didn't need to this game. He also had 8 rebounds, 9 assists, 2 turnovers for assist to turnover ratio above 4.5. Imagine that with 1 or 0 assists. It shows. It makes a difference in the game when you are not turning the ball over, but you are putting your teammates in a position where they can score. Getting 9 turnovers doesn't happen by accident. You pass the ball to somebody when they are just in position to score, makes a huge difference. And Alfred Sengun is definitely good at that. So he flirted with a triple-double this game. 18 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, 4 stocks. He was everywhere. He was basically their version of Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes did score more, but this performance obviously contributed to the win because of the plus-minus at 24. I have to give this matchup to Sengun. It wasn't really a fair matchup anyways, but hopefully these are the types of things to come from Colin Murray-Boyles, just more potent. We need him to be a force later on in the season because Jakob Poeltl needs a backup. He needs some solid backup. Brandon Ingram had 29 points on 11 of 16 shooting, and he hit 5 3-pointers. This was a pretty good offensive game for Brandon Ingram. A little bit even defensively. There wasn't much defense played, but I'm sure defensive breakdowns, there were some steals and blocks allowed. So that was 68.8% shooting, 688, 5 3-pointers like I mentioned, 2 rebounds, assist to turnover ratio horrendous again. He did have a pretty good one last game against the Spurs, but this is 1-to-1, 4 assists, 4 turnovers. The defense and even the offense was a bit let loose. I saw some turnovers that didn't have to happen, at least one coming particularly from Brandon Ingram, but it's perhaps part of the growing pains of being with a new team. He probably expected someone to step in or cut or something like that. Lastly, with Brandon Ingram, his plus minus was a negative 17. It wasn't the highest on the team. That belonged to RJ Barrett this game, who didn't have such a great game, but we need to try to keep these under 15, under 10, somewhere in a winning range. Kevin Durant won this matchup, just barely, unfortunately. They both shot well. They both had a lot of three-pointers. Kevin Durant scored 31 points on 11 of 19 shooting for 57%, or you can call it 57.9% shooting. 4 of 8 three-pointers for 50% on three-pointers, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 turnovers, who cares? 0.5 assist to turnover ratio, but his plus minus was another full-grown 20-year-old. 20, it was 20. Plus 20 plus minus means, he was doing damage. That's him and Sengun seem like a good matchup together, because Sengun's either going to find a way to get to the basket, or he's going to be tricky to find the ball to someone else who's able to score. 9 assists. It's not a mistake. So Kevin Durant obviously was the recipient of a lot of those passes when he scored, and he took advantage. The Raptors got slim reaped when they couldn't stop the easy money sniper. It's nothing new. I mean, he's named those things for a reason. So, unfortunately, this was the matchup that we were all looking for, anticipating the most. I don't even know who to give this matchup to. They both played well. I think the lopsidedness of the center matchup is really what lopsided this game. It wasn't very lopsided, but if we had at least one more big, maybe it could have made a difference. This is a huge team. 4 out of the 5 players in their starting lineup are 6'10" and up. So, you have to have something to counter that, and we don't at the moment. Unfortunately, our starting center is down. Mamu and Colin Murray, though, they seem like they have a bit of potential just to break out right now. I mean, Mamu, it's like you got to hold him back. He's hesitant, but he shouldn't be. You're on the court, buddy. Do what you do. Already had some decent, impressive scoring totals, 3-point totals. Mamu, we got to free Mamu. Mamu had a massive dunk late in the game. It looked like it should have been an and one. Where's the refs? Of course, they're nowhere for us. As usual, they're nowhere. When it comes to the Raptors, they're a little, they swallow the whistles a little bit. So we got to get some respect from Mamu. I think even the other game, Giannis slapped him in the face on a putback. Just like, can we just call fouls? There's just a blatant offensive foul slap to the face, and nobody called anything. It was just not even acknowledged. We got to start calling fouls for Mamu. Everybody on the team, get it together. Defend Mamu. These calls need to be called. He needs to be respected on the court. Respect Mamu. This game wasn't the worst game in the world. It was a bit of a discovery game. Again, we didn't have our center, so it was sort of hard to win against. It was sort of hard to win against such a big team. Steven Adams, Alfred Sengun, Kevin Durant, who's listed at 6'9", but is definitely 7 feet. Men Thompson, he's pretty tall for a point. He played point guard. That's their starting lineup. That's 4 7-footers, 3 7-footers. Who's the fourth one? Jalen Smith. Like, these are all guys well above 6'10" and up. Except for Thompson. So it was a tough game for us to try to win in that, right? Jakob wasn't there, and the workload was a ton. This game is in the books, and this episode should be in the books. We tried our best. It wasn't a very defensive game. It was a bit loose and disorganized, I'll say, especially for the Raptors, who do need their starting center, Jakob Poeltl. When he comes back, if we play them again, we'll be able to see how we match up to the Houston Rockets some more. I'm not sure if it'll be consequential come the playoffs. Obviously, they're a West Coast team and we're an East Coast team, but it is good to match yourself up against teams like this that are a high-powered offense, have very well-known scorers who are a menace to defend, and we can test ourselves against that. So thanks for watching, Raptor fans. We'll be back with the next game matchups. Check out my social media. Please like, subscribe, follow, comment. Hopefully the comments are too bad about my commentary, but I am a Raptors fan. I am biased. I try to stay objective. If you have a different opinion, I'd love to hear it and discuss with you. All right. Have a good day. Have a good night. Peace out, Raptor fans.